Namaste. Hello and welcome to the Kundalini podcast. That was Zen. This is Tao. I'm Vivek, Govekar. This is episode 60. And I'm going to continue from the previous episode about certain topics. Again, general discussion, no set subject, but dwelling on some of the same themes that I mentioned in the last video about rigidity and some of the misconceptions, some of the conversations I've had recently. As I've told you, I joined this group called Kundalini Initiates, and a bunch of people. I came back to Facebook after a long time. I had to stay away from social media after my awakening for some time. Initially, what happens is you want to discard everything. And I've been talking to this lady who just awakened about a week ago, and it's been fascinating to watch this. In my case, this happened in 2006. Back then, there was no Facebook. I think YouTube was just new, Facebook was new. So we were not all as connected as we are today. And it was incredible to see this. Uh, she added me as a friend on Facebook. So I went to her timeline and I saw her posts, and she's posting as she is going through these processes and the changes, which is amazing. I never had that chance. I was doing it in the uh, confines of my home back then. And one of the comments I saw on one of her posts was, make sure you go and check out Vivek Govekar on YouTube. So that made me feel good. Okay, so I'm being helpful to people that people are recommending them. And that's the whole point. So I got in touch with her and I've been guiding her with the same stuff that I keep repeating on this website about the initial stages, what to do. Initially, you go through extreme amounts of euphoria, excitement, and you are in an amazing state. And you know that you have to discard a lot of stuff. You have to remove your old habits, cleanse your body. A lot of new stuff starts coming in. So at that point, no one warns you that eventually there's going to be a depression, there's going to be a letdown. This euphoric stage won't last for a long time. And there is a reason for that. The initial stage is to make you aware the energy is intelligent and autonomous. So it makes you aware that this is who you are, this is what is outside of you, but you will have to make efforts to remove this excess stuff, all of this conditioning. And it will be a very hard journey, but you will have to do that. And if you do that and align with the energy, then good things will happen and your inner self will be revealed. You will go to a higher state. So it makes you aware in that state of euphoria and excitement of the struggle ahead. But even if that is happening, it is very easy to get confused. You're not at all conditioned or made aware that this is waiting for you. So this lady was going through a Kundalini yoga class, and that's where that happened. So watching it again in happening in someone else's life has been great for me. It brings back memories of my initial awakening and what I went through. But yes, after that first initial euphoric stage, you go through some depression. You go through obviously a mismatch between your old life and your new things that are coming to you, the revelations and what the energy is telling you. So, what I'd like to tell people is you may have some notions, you may have some beliefs, but the sooner you discard them and start listening to your inner voice, the better after an awakening. So, how can someone who is not awakened benefit from this knowledge? Exactly what I said in the last video. Let's start moving ahead and not stay with what was written in scripture and how it is supposed to be followed. All of these methods have a reason why people have said, use this method, follow a guru, because it's very dangerous. Awakening could have easily gone in a certain direction where I could have gone crazy. Yes. Where I could have had some severe physical damage. I was fortunate enough to be able to find some things and understand from my past that this is how I could guide this. And it is still not perfect. My process is not smooth as it could have been. So, to make it smooth for other people in the future that will awaken, because it is going to happen. As I've said, why are people having more awakenings these days? That's the other question I get. And I've said this before, but again, needs to be expressed slightly differently. we had very limited access to knowledge. Okay, first of all, we lived in a world where there was no connection between a culture, say in Europe compared to China, compared to India. It took many years, many months to travel from one place to another. People could keep things hidden and secret. There was no internet. Communication means were very limited. So all of these cultures have developed separately, okay, over the last say 150, 200 years. So since all of these media, starting with the telegraph and the telephone, trains, planes, and the internet, all of this is getting connected, and people are interested in these practices, yoga and Tibetan bowls and different kinds of psychedelics like ayahuasca. If you are exposed to enough of these factors, then an awakening will happen. If you are ready for it, your past karma has prepared you for it because the energy wants to awaken. It is getting ready to awaken and wants to awaken. The secrecy in the past was for specific reasons related to that era. Okay, so think of it this way. I have found the perfect analogy, I guess, to describe it. Anything you go to learn in any school, okay, let's say you go to school, starting with kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, I guess that's commonly what's where people study for 12 years in a school. When you go into kindergarten, you're not immediately given advanced calculus, algebra, right? You start with A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. You go to a martial arts school, you're not immediately taught black belt level exercises or start throwing punches at each other and sparring. You start some basics, told to practice, and slowly you develop. So, extending this analogy of going to school, when you're in kindergarten and you're being taught 1, 2, 3 or ABCs, you're given children's storybooks, you're given colorful diagrams because a child of that age needs that to learn the 1, 2, 3 and concept of a 1, 2, 3 ABC, what numbers are. Now, by the time you're in 10th grade and you're being taught algebra, for example, or calculus, at that point, you're not shown like bunnies and rabbits and funny things from that. It's laughable, right? That's what we are doing when we hold on to this baggage of this is what the guru says, this is condition that has to be followed. All of that was for a very primary stage and a superficial level of understanding of the religion, right? So if you're told a story about in mythology, for example, in India, about Ram, Krishna, and what they did and their exploits, to give you a slightly better understanding of morality, ethics, and the deeper understanding of the Kundalini. At a later stage, when you have awakened, it is like holding on to the book from kindergarten where you had bunnies and you were counting 1, 2, 3 bunnies, and one bunny runs away, then you have two bunnies, that kind of thing. When your brain and these revelations by the energy is giving you advanced calculus. Okay, that's a very funny but very pertinent way of putting it, as seen from an awakened person's point of view. And which is why the separation between different traditions falls apart. Once you have the glimpse, once you have the gnosis, then every book is like just a guideline, an instruction book. But there have been schools created about somebody saying, let's give you another example from the Bible this time, okay? So I've been dwelling on Eastern religions and Tai Chi a lot. So let's see where the Bible is saying this and how that ties into some other tradition. For example, okay, let me tie two traditions together that you have never thought to put together. Jesus says, or it says in the Bible, that a rich man cannot get to heaven. Okay. So there is an entire faction of Christianity that looks at rich people and says, this is all fake. Some pastor who has now become rich because of his televangelism is not good because he's rich and how can he get to heaven? Other people say, no, God preaches abundance. God is not against being rich. He talks about kings and wealth. So they say, no, the gospel of abundance is right. So which one is correct? Okay. Now, take an example from Raja Yoga, for example, which talks about withdrawing your senses. Take an example from Buddhism, which says have no attachments. And now put these two concepts together. What is being rich? It is not about the wealth that you accumulate. It is understood that you are going to have a profession, make a certain amount of money, and have yourself established. And only then can you actually access spirituality. A poor person cannot do that. They are busy with thinking about hunger and where the next meal is going to come from and other concerns like that. They don't have time for true spirituality. What is wrong with being rich is it doesn't matter what the amount of money is. It could be $1,000 and you think you're rich. And you're extremely attached to that, to the point that you don't want to lose that. You are constantly worried about it. So your senses are taken in that direction. This does two things. If you have read my things about affirmations and how to put positive thoughts to create a positive outcome, one is you're always going to be limited by that. And you won't have time to think about spirituality or anything else because you're too busy just holding on to that money. And the other thing is because that has accumulated in your mind and those thoughts about lack and something going away and those fears, you will bring that about. Right? Why a rich man cannot go to heaven is because the mindset that I am rich and I'm defined by my money and I'm holding on to that money is not going to allow you to free your senses to go to a higher level. It doesn't matter how much you actually materially accumulate or don't accumulate. So you could be a billionaire who doesn't think too much about his money, is not defined by it, and doesn't have those concerns and constant stressful feelings, cravings related to that wealth. That person will go to heaven. That person is rich, but not really rich in a bad way. Okay, so no attachment from Buddhism comes in handy. So this is just an example of one thing. Okay, I'm just giving an example, and there are other interpretations of it as well. But this is how I interpret it, based on my expanded consciousness and my awakened perspective. Nothing is wrong with following a certain tradition as long as that tradition doesn't hold you back from personal spiritual progress. And if some other tradition gives you something that leads to something higher, by all means adopt that. Other way of looking at it is, what is your personal balance? Where do you find your personal balance? And for that, you need introspection. People have to be honest about where they have been wrong. And for that, whatever piece of wisdom that you read from a self-help book, from something that you read on the internet, from a website that is about positive affirmations, and that helped you personally, well then, take that. Do what works for you. And use traditions as guiding lights that will help you on some higher path, that make you feel free, make you feel like a burden has been lifted off. True spirituality should be about your feeling free and at a higher level with some old nonsense that has been discarded from you. Anything that makes you feel that, feel free to adopt that. I hope that was helpful. This is Vivek Govekar saying namaste. Be well.